Let's take a look at our first problem. We got negative 7y plus 14 equals negative 18. Now we'll go through our 4 steps for solving a linear equation. First step is get rid of parentheses, don't have any. Second step is get rid of fractions, don't have any. Third step, get everything with a y on one side, numbers on the other. So take 14 over to the right side. Take anything across or equals, your sign changes. So the positive 14 becomes a negative 14. At any step, combine together numbers. Negative 18, negative 14 gives us negative 32. Step 4. Divide both sides by a number in front of your y, which is a negative 7. And when we do that, those negative 7's going to cancel. And negative divided by negative, the negatives cancel, and we got 32 over 7. And that's our answer. Okay, second one, we got 2/7 v plus 4/5 equals 6/5 v minus 4/5. Step 1, get rid of parentheses. Don't have any. Step 2, get rid of fractions. Multiply everything by the LCM of all your denominators. We got 7, 5, 5, and 5. So if we look at finding the LCM of 7 and 5, these are primes, so it's pretty straightforward, but our steps say to write the prime factorization of each number down. Well, 7's prime, so we just write down 7. 5's prime, so we just write down 5. Our LCM, we start with our first prime, the 5. We're looking for the greatest number of 5's on a single line. I'm talking about to the right of the equals. So no 5's here, 1 5 here, so greatest number of 5's on a single line is 1. Then we go to our next prime, the 7. I'm looking for the greatest number of 7's on a single line. 1 here, none here, so it'd be 1. So 5 times 7 would be 35. So we're going to multiply everything by 35. So we'll take 35 times 2/7 v. We'll take 35 times 4/5. We'll take 35 times 6/5 v. And we'll take 35 times 4/5. Okay, 35 and 7 are both divisible by 7. 7 divided by 7 is 1. 35 divided by 7 is 5. 5 and 35 both divisible by 5. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 35 divided by 5 is 7. 5 and 35, again, both divisible by 5. That gives me 1, gives me 7. And same thing here. That's 1, and that's 7. Now all of our denominators disappeared, which means it worked. So we're left with 5 times 2, which is 10v, plus 7 times 4, which is 28, equals 7 times 6, which is 42v, minus 7 times 4, which is 28. Step 3. Get everything with a v on one side, numbers on the other. So I'm going to take this 42v, move it over to the left side, and take this 28 and move it to the right side. Remember, when you move anything across or equals, your sign changes. So the 42v becomes a negative 42v, and the positive 28 becomes a negative 28. Combine together like terms in any step. 10v minus 42v gives you negative 32v. Combine together numbers in any step. Negative 28, negative 28 gives us negative 56. Step 4. Divide both sides by a number in front of your v. So divide both sides by negative 32. And those negative 32's cancel. And the negatives cancel over here. And 56 and 32 at least both divisible by 4. That gives us 114 up there, and divide that by 4 gives us 8. I guess they're divisible by more than 4. They're both still divisible by 2, so that gives me 7/4. So I guess they're both divisible by 8 to begin with. So our answer is V is equal to 7/4. Okay, number 3. Okay, we got 2 times 5x plus 10 equals negative 5x minus 40. Step 1. Get rid of parentheses. We do have parentheses in this one. So use distributive property. I'm going to take the 2 and multiply through. Multiply times the 5x and multiply times the 10. 2 times 5x gives me 10x. 2 times 10 gives me 20. It equals negative 5x minus 40. Step 2. Get rid of fractions. Don't have any. Step 3. Get everything with an x on one side, numbers on the other. So I'll take negative 5x over here and take 20 over to that side. Remember, you take anything across your equals, your sign changes. So the negative 5x becomes a positive 5x. The positive 20 becomes a negative 20. Combine together like terms in any step. 15x plus, or 10x plus 5x is 15x. Combine numbers. Negative 40 and negative 20 is negative 60. Step 4. Divide both sides by a number in front of your x. Well, the number in front of x is 15, so divide both sides by 15. And then we get x, and those 15s cancel. 60 divided by, or negative 60 divided by 15 gives us negative 4, I believe. And that would be your answer. Okay. Problem number 4. We got x to the 7th times x to the 6th times x to the 1st. And I can read the instructions, but say simplify. So we got x to a power times x to a power times x to a power. Well, we're going to add all our exponents. So we got 7 plus 6 plus 1. 7 plus 6 is 13, plus 1 gives us 14. So our answer is x to the 14th. Okay, number 5. We got x to the 6th times x to the 5th over x to the negative 2. Now we for simplifying purposes, we never want negative exponents, so that's the first thing I want to handle. I'm going to take this x to the negative 2 and move it up on top. Now when you move anything opposite where it's at in a fraction, the sign of the exponent changes. So we got x to the 6th times x to the 5th, and when we take the x to the negative 2 up on top, it becomes x to the positive 2. And I'll put a placeholder of 1 down there. Of course, that 1's going to disappear, and we got x to a power times x to a power times x to a power, and we'll add all the exponents. So I got 6 plus 5 plus 2, which gives us x to the 13th power. And that's our answer. Number 6. We got y squared to the negative 2 power. Well, again, we never want negative exponents, so almost immediately that's what I want to get rid of. So in order to get rid of it, you have it have in fraction form, so I can throw this over 1. And now we're going to take this down to the bottom to get rid of the negative exponent. Now there's a placeholder. I'll put a placeholder of 1 up on top. When everything disappears from a fraction, you can always put a 1 there. And this becomes y squared to the positive 2 power. Whenever you move anything opposite where it's at in a fraction, the sign of the exponent changes. Now notice it does not change anything inside the parentheses. And now, once we got rid of the negative exponent, we got an exponent raised to another exponent, so you're going to multiply them together. So 2 times 2 gives us 4. So we're going to have 1 over y to the 4th. And that's our answer. Number 7. Okay, we got negative 2 x squared over y to the 3rd, and it's being raised to the 3rd power. Now remember, I said this should be called the distributive property of exponents. It isn't, but it should be called that. If everything inside your parentheses is either multiplication or division, and you raise it into a power, then you can take everything in that power. So we're going to take the 2 to the 3rd power, we'll take the x squared to the 3rd power, and we'll take the y to the 3rd to the 3rd power. Now remember what happens when you got a negative inside of a parentheses to an odd power. You're going to end up with negative anyway, so I can ignore that. That's just going to be a negative. So we got 2 to the 3rd, we got x squared to the 3rd, and we got y to the 3rd to the 3rd. Well, the negative carries down. 2 to the 3rd is 8. X, and again we're raising one exponent to another one, you multiply them together. 2 times 3 is 6 over y, and then again we're raising one exponent to another exponent, so you multiply them. 3 times 3 is 9. So our answer is going to be negative 8 x is 6 over y to the 9th. Let's take a look at our next problem. Okay. So we got 8x to the 4th over 2x to the 3rd, and 1 is simplified. Well, let's first handle the numbers. 8 and 2 are both divisible by 2. 8 divided by 2 is 4. 2 divided by 2 is 1. And now let's handle the x's. When you have x to a power over x to a power, you subtract smaller exponent from larger one. So we've got 4 minus 3 is 1. And we're going to have x to the 1st power where our larger exponent was, which is on top. And then that 1 disappears, and that 1 disappears. So we got 4x over 1, or just 4x. And that's our answer. Okay. Let's see, number 9. We got xy squared minus 8y. And they're wanting us to plug in x equals 5 and y is equal to negative 2. X equals 5 and y is equal to negative 2. Okay, first step. We go through and replace all of our variables with sets of parentheses. So I got parentheses times parentheses squared minus 8 times parentheses. Now notice how everything else remained exactly the same. The squared, the minus 8, all we did is replace our variables with parentheses. Step 2. Plug in the given values now. Well, they told us that x is 5, so everywhere I had an x, I'll put in 5. And they told us y is negative 2, so everywhere I had a y, I'll put in negative 2. And step 3, we want to simplify using order of operations. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Please do what's inside parentheses. There is nothing inside of parentheses. Excuse, we do have an exponent, this negative 2 squared. So everything else carried down, and this parentheses didn't do anything on the 5, so I can drop it. Negative 2 squared, negative 2 times negative 2 gives you positive 4. Then I'll bring everything else down. Please excuse, my dear. Multiplication and division is encounter either one from left to right. Here's 5 times 4 is 20. I'll bring everything else down. We're still doing the multiplication and division. And here I got negative 8 times negative 2, which gives us a positive 16. And then Aunt Sally, addition, subtraction, 20 plus 16 gives us 36. And that's our answer. Okay, number 10. So we got 6x squared plus 8x plus 7. And it asks us to determine if the expression is monomial, binomial, trinomial. Remember, terms are separated by pluses and minuses. So here's our first term, second term, and third term. Since there's 3 terms, that means it'll be a trinomial. Then it asks us, determine the degree and leading coefficient of the polynomial. Now the degree is your largest power of x for this problem, which would be 2. And our leading coefficient. Now that's when this is in standard form, when your terms are arranged from largest power down to smallest, your leading coefficient is the number that's right out in front. It's clear out in front, which is a 6. And those would be your answers. Okay, number 11. We got 4x plus 2 minus negative 9x plus 1. And it says get rid of parentheses, combine like terms. Okay, first parentheses isn't doing anything, so I can just drop it. Now remember, if there's a negative out in front of your parentheses, this flips the sign of everything inside. So the negative 9x becomes a positive 9x. The positive 1 becomes a negative 1. Now combine together like terms. 4x plus 9x gives us 13x. And combine numbers. 2 minus 1 gives us 1. So our answer is 13x plus 1. Okay, number 12. We got negative 5x squared minus 6x minus 6 plus negative x minus 5. Well, first thing we want to do is get rid of these parentheses. Neither one's doing anything, so I can just drop them. So we got negative 5x squared minus 6x minus 6 minus x minus 5. And we want to combine together like terms. So we got negative 5x squared. Like terms, same variable to the same power. So here's our x the first. So negative 6, negative 1 gives us negative 7x. Then the combined numbers. Negative 6, negative 5 gives us negative 11. And that's our answer. 13. We've got negative 7y. And we're multiplying that times 5x third y. This is a monomial times a monomial. And what you do is you multiply like items. Negative 7 times 5 is negative 35. So we multiply the numbers together first. Multiply the x's. Well, this one doesn't have an x, but this one does. So I'll just write down x to the third. Then multiply the y's. Y times y gives us y squared. And that's our answer. And I could probably fit number 14 on here. We got negative 6y times negative 6x squared plus y. So we got monomial, one term out here, and we got a binomial here, 2 terms. So I'm going to take this negative 6y, this is a distributive property, and I'll multiply it times my first term and multiply it times my second term. Okay, so I'm going to have negative 6y times negative 6x squared, and I'll have negative 6y times y. Now negative 6 times negative 6 gives us positive 36, x squared, y. I just put the variables in alphabetical order, oops, minus 6, y times y is y squared. And that would be our answer. Let me save that. And there there. Start a new page. And we'll start number 15. Multiply the binomials. So we got x minus 7 times x plus 2. Okay, so I'm going to take my first term here, this x, and I'll multiply it times the first term over here, times the x, and I'll also multiply it times the second term, the 2. So I got x times x, and I got x times 2. Then I'll take my second term, the negative 7, and I'll multiply it times the first term over here and times the second term. So I got negative 7 times x and negative 7 times 2. Well, x times x is x squared, x times 2 is 2x, minus 7x, minus 7 times 2 is 14. And always combine together like terms. 2x minus 7x is negative 5x, and that's our answer. Okay, 3x minus 3 times 2x minus 2. Same instructions. So I'm going to take my first term, the 3x, and multiply it times every term over here. So I'm going to have 3x times 2x, 3x times negative 2. Then I'll take my second term, the negative 3, and multiply it times the 2x over here and times the negative 2. This is just FOIL, if you learned that technique. Negative 3 times 2x and negative 3 times negative 2. I use the arrows to help me figure out what to multiply together. My teaching it anyway. 3x times 2x is 6x squared. 3x times negative 2 is negative 6x. Negative 3 times 2x is negative 6x. And negative 3 times negative 2 gives me a positive 6. Which gives me, combined like terms, negative 6x is negative 12x. And that's my answer. Okay, 17. This is one of our special products. So we got 7x minus 1 times 7x plus 1. Now these are conjugates of each other. And what a conjugate is the first is the same and the second is the same, but the sign in the middle is different. What I mean by that is here's 7x, here's 7x. And here's 1 and here's 1. But this is a minus and this is a plus. When you got conjugates, all you have to do is multiply your first parts together, 7x times 7x, which gives us 49x squared, and multiply your last parts together. Negative 1 times positive 1 gives us negative 1. So our answer is 49x squared minus 1. Now if you didn't recognize that and use the technique we looked at in the last two examples, you get the same answer. Number 18. We got x minus 5 squared. On this one, x minus 5 squared, we're going to have to rewrite it. We'll rewrite it as x minus 5 times x minus 5. We can't just square the x and square the 5 because of the minus in there. If you got a plus or minus in the middle like that, then you have to rewrite it this way and then multiply everything together. Okay, so I'm going to take my first term here, the x, multiply it times the x over here, times the negative 5. So we got x times x times negative 5. And then we'll take our second term, the negative 5, and multiply times the x over here and times the negative 5. So we've got negative 5 times x and negative 5 times negative 5. X times x is x squared. X times negative 5 is negative 5x. Negative 5 times x is negative 5x. And negative 5 times negative 5 gives me a positive 25. Combine together like terms. Negative 5x is negative 10x. And our answer is x squared minus 10x plus 25. Okay, number 19. We've got x minus 6 times x squared minus x minus 1. Okay, I'm going to take my first term here, the x, and multiply it times the x squared times the negative x and times the negative 1. So x times x squared, x times negative x, and x times negative 1. And then I'm going to take my negative 6 and multiply it times each one of these terms. So I'll take the negative 6 times x squared, negative 6 times negative x, and negative 6 times negative 1. Well, x times x squared gives me x to the third, minus x times x is x squared, x times negative 1 is negative x, negative 6 times x squared is negative 6x squared, negative times a negative gives us positive 6x, and negative times a negative gives us 6 times 1, 6. Combined together like terms. We got x to the third. Here's an x squared, here's an x squared. So you add or subtract numbers in front of them. Negative 1, negative 6 gives us negative 7x squared. Here's an x, and here's an x. Negative x, negative 1x plus 6x gives us 5x. And then I'll bring down the plus 6. And that's our answer. Number 20. Solve the linear equation. So we got negative 2 minus 8 times y plus 6 equals 8 times 4y minus 2 minus 7. Okay, step 1. Get rid of parentheses. I do have parentheses on this one, so I'm going to take this negative 8, multiply times a y, multiply times a 6, and I'll take this 8 and multiply times a 4y and times a negative 2. Distributive property. Negative 8 times y is negative 8y. Negative 8 times 6 is negative 48. 8 times 4 gives me 32y. 8 times negative 2 is negative 16 minus 7. Our note up at top says in a step combine together numbers. So we got over on the left side, we got negative 2, negative 48 gives us negative 50. And over on the right side, we got negative 16, negative 7. So that's going to give us 32y minus 23. Okay, step 2. Get rid of fractions. Don't have any. Step 3. Get everything with a y on one side, numbers on the other. So take 32y over and take negative 50 and move it over. So we got negative 8y minus 32y equals negative 23 plus 50. Combine together like terms in a step. Negative 8y, negative 32y gives us negative 40y. Combine numbers. Negative 23 plus 50 gives us 27. Okay, step 4. Divide both sides by a number in front of your y. The number in front of your y is a negative 40. So we'll divide both sides by negative 40. And we get y is equal to negative 27 over 40. And that's our answer. Okay, number 21. We got w minus 2/3 equals 7/3. There's a shortcut to this one, but I'm going to ignore it. Go through my 4 steps. First step, get rid of parentheses. Don't have any. Second step, get rid of fractions. Multiply everything by the LCM of all your denominators. Now we got 3 and 3. So basically we got 3. So that's our LCM. We're going to take 3 times w minus 3 times 2/3 and 3 times 7/3. So we got 3w. Those 3's cancel and those 3's cancel. So we got 3w minus 2 equals 7. Okay, step 3. Get everything with a W on one side, numbers on the other. So I'll take this -2, move it over. Remember, you take anything cross or equals, your sign changes, so -2 becomes a +2. Combine numbers in a step. 7 plus 2 is 9. And then we're going to do step 4. Divide both sides by number in front of your W. The number in front of our W is a 3, so we'll divide both sides by 3. And we get W is equal to 3 as our answer. Let's see, number 22. Decimals. I hate decimals. Let's see how this goes. We got -0.2v plus 6.4 equals 0.5v minus 0.6. And let's go through our steps. First step is get rid of parentheses, don't have any. Second step is get rid of fractions, don't have any. Third step, get everything with a v on one side, everything else on the other. So I'll take this 0.5v over the left side, and I'll take this 6.4 to the right side. Remember, you take anything cross or equals, your sign changes. So the 0.5v becomes a -0.5v. The 6.4 becomes a -6.4. Now, combine together like terms in a step. -0.2 and -0.5 gives me a -0.7v. Combine numbers. -0.6 and -6.4 gives me -7. Assuming I haven't messed up on decimals. I'm never good at decimals. Okay, step 4. Divide both sides by number in front of your v. Number in front of v is a -0.7. -0.7. And when I do that, those -0.7's cancel. And negative divided by negative becomes positive. And this gives me 10, I believe. Move that over, move this, that'd be 70 divided by 7, yeah, 10. So our answer is v is equal to 10. Okay, number 23. I want to simplify this expression. So we got x to the 6 times x to the -3. Now we don't want negative exponents. So we know how to get rid of negative exponents. We take it opposite where it's at in a fraction. So I'm going to put this over 1. And the part with the negative exponent, I'll take it opposite in a fraction. So I'll take the x to the -3 and move it down below. So we're going to have x to the 6 over x to the +3. Remember, when you take anything opposite of where it's at in a fraction, the sign of the exponent changes. Now we have x to a power over x to a power. So you're going to subtract smaller exponent from larger one. So you got 6 minus 3 gives you 3. And we'll have x to this power where the larger exponent was, which is on top. So we're going to have x to the 3 over 1, which just simply gives us x to the 3. Number 24. We got 9x to the -4. Now again, we don't want negative exponents, so we're going to put this over 1 so we can get rid of the negative exponent. And how you get rid of negative exponents is you take the part with the negative exponent opposite of where it's at in a fraction. So this x to the -4 I'll take down below. Now when I do that, the x to the -4 becomes x to the +4. And there's no more simplifying to do at that point, so that's our answer. 25. -7 to the 3rd. Now remember with exponents, exponent only affects what's to its immediate left unless there's parentheses, and then affects everything inside the parentheses. So this negative is not affected. And that 7 to the 3rd says 7 times 7 times 7. And when I multiply those together, the negative carries down, and that gives us 343. And that's our answer. 26. We got 4 times 5 mn squared to the 0 power. Now remember, anything to the 0 power is always equal to 1. But the exponent only affects what's to its immediate left unless there's parentheses, and affects everything inside of parentheses. So the 0 power is affecting 5mn squared, everything inside of parentheses. It is not affecting the 4 that's out in front, though, so that 4 just carries down. So now we have parentheses to the 0 power, which gives us 1, and 4 times 1 gives us 4. Number 27. Okay. We got 3 over ab squared to the negative 3 power. Now remember, we had a property on this that says if you have a fraction to a negative power, you flip the fraction, you take the reciprocal of it. So we're going to have ab squared over 3 to the positive 3 power. Now if everything inside your parentheses is either multiplication or division, you're raising the parentheses to a power, you can take everything inside of that power. So we're going to take the a to the 3rd power, the b squared to the 3rd power, and the 3 to the 3rd power. So we're going to have a to the 3rd, we'll have b squared to the 3rd, and we'll have 3 to the 3rd. It gives us a to the 3rd, b, and when you raise one exponent to another exponent, you multiply them together. 2 times 3 gives you 6. And then 3 to the 3rd, 3 times 3 times 3 gives you 27. And that would be your answer. Let's see, number 28. We got xy squared minus 8y to the 3rd. And they're wanting us to plug in x equals 3 and y is equal to 1. Remember our steps. First step is we're going to replace our variables with parentheses. So we're going to have parentheses times parentheses squared minus 8 times parentheses to the 3rd. Now notice how everything else has remained exactly the same. All we did is replace our variables with sets of parentheses. Squared remained, this multiplication, the minus 8, the 3rd power. Step 2. We're going to plug in the numbers. They tell us x is 3, so we're going to put 3 in everywhere we had an x. And they tell us y is 1, so we'll put 1 in everywhere we had a y. And then step 3. We want to simplify. Please do what's inside the parentheses. There is nothing to do inside the parentheses. Excuse exponents. Well, here's our first one, 1 squared. 1 squared is 1. Everything else carries down. We still have more exponents. 1 to the 3rd power. Everything else carries down. 1 to the 3rd power is 1. Please excuse my dear. Multiplication or division. Here's 3 times 1. That gives us 3. Everything else carries down. And we still have another multiplication. 8 times 1. That gives us 8. And then Aunt Sally, addition, subtraction. 3 minus 8 is negative 5. And that's our answer. Let me save that. And we'll go to the next problem. Okay, there we go. 29. It says multiply the binomials using the FOIL method. So we got x squared plus 7 times 3x squared minus 8. Now I'll use a line method, which is basically FOIL. So we'll take our first term here, this x squared, multiply times the first term over here, multiply times the second term. So we got x squared times 3x squared, the firsts multiply together. And then we'll take the x squared times negative 8, that's the outer. So we've got x squared times negative 8. And then we're going to take this 7, the second term in our first parentheses, multiply times our first term over here and times our second term. So we'll take 7 times 3x squared, that's the inners. And then I'll take 7 times the negative 8. Those are our last parts. Okay, x squared times x squared is x to the 4th. minus 8x squared plus 7 times 3 is 21x squared, and 7 times negative 8 is negative 56. Combine together like terms, x squared, negative 8 plus 21 is 13, x squared, minus 56. And that's our answer. And number 30. I think that's the last one. Yes, it is. X minus 2 times x plus 2. Now these are conjugates. So on this one, all I have to do is multiply my first parts together, x times x, which is x squared, and my last parts, negative 2 times 2, which gives me a negative 4. Now when I say they're conjugates, that means the first part's the same, last part's the same. First part, x and x. Last part, 2 and 2. But the sign in the middle is different. See how this is a minus and this is a plus. That's when you can always use that shortcut. Now if you don't recognize it and you go through these steps, the FOIL process, you'll get the same answer anyway. So it's not a big deal. Now assuming I didn't make any mistakes anywhere in this review, that should be the last of it.